did you or did you not shred documents that reflected presidential approval of the diversion?
I have absolutely no recollection of destroying any document which gave me an indication that the president had seen the document or that the president had specifically approved. I assumed that the 3 transactions which I supervised or managed or coordinated, whatever word you're comfortable with, and I can accept all 3, were approved by the president. I never recall seeing a single document which gave me a clear indication that the president had specifically approved that action.
That was Colonel Oliver North being questioned by Congress about matters concerning the Iran-Contra Affair. What was the Iran-Contra Affair? The answer to that question is what I hope to convey in this presentation. It was the biggest scandal in America after the Watergate scandal during the 1970s, and it was the largest blemish on the otherwise successful Reagan administration. In short, the Iran-Contra Affair is the name given to the scandal in which the Reagan administration and officials sold weapons to Iran and supplied the Contras with aid, both of which were banned by Congress at the time. What reason could America have to sell weapons to a nation that was illegal to deal with? And why would U.S. officials want to help Iran, who had a long history of hating America? The first supreme ruler of Iran at the time was Ruhollah Khomeini, and he was known for calling America the Great Satan. The reason for the weapons sales was claimed to simply be in hopes of gaining better relations with Iranian leadership, but quickly became a way to gain the release of several U.S. citizens held hostage by Hezbollah in Lebanon. It all began in August of 1985, when a group from the Iranian government contacted U.S. officials in Beirut. Other Iranians that the U.S. officials were regularly meeting with indicated that leaders from Tehran wanted to meet with them as well. President Reagan approved these meetings, and a few top officials, led by our National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane, started meeting secretly with the faction from Iran. The meetings began in various cities in Europe, but also included some top-secret missions to Tehran, one of which included McFarlane himself and a Marine Colonel Oliver North, who was also on the staff of the National Security Council. The administration thought the meetings would be a good way to get a foot in the door through negotiations to attain a relationship with the post-Khomeini leadership of Iran. A good relationship with Iran would be very beneficial, and the Reagan administration saw this as a good chance to step in and hopefully get a future leader to like America, since Khomeini was ill and wasn't expected to be around much longer. Supposedly, negotiations started with just those objectives in mind, but quickly turned into talks of arms and the hostages in Lebanon. Iranian officials got a hold of Israel's prime minister at the time, Shimon Peres, and said they could probably work out an arms for hostages deal. The plan was for Israel to sell weapons to Iran, and then the U.S. would resupply Israel with weapons. You might wonder why Israel would think it was in their national interest to help Iran. Well, it was partially because they too wanted to gain a better relationship with the future Iranian leaders, and also because they wanted Iran to stop Iraq in the Gulf War. It was not new for Israel to sell weapons to Iran either. They really believed it was in their national interest at the time. The first American hostage released was Reverend Benjamin Weir. Shortly after, Iran received some of the Hawk missiles and guidance systems that they requested. The dealings had to be done very secretly since they were technically illegal. On one occasion, a plane flew in from Iran over Israel, and Israel said they forced it to land, and then it went back to Iran. Another time, Israel temporarily changed the name of a ship loaded with ammunitions to take to Iran. On December 4th, 1985, McFarlane resigned as National Security Advisor, and Admiral John M. Poindexter took his job. Then, just 2 days later, Oliver North told Israeli officials that the U.S. planned to use the proceeds from the weapon sales to support the Contras. Now let me give you some background about the Contras. The U.S. had a history of supporting the Contras, an armed force in Nicaragua that fought against Nicaragua's Sandinista government, then led by Daniel Ortega, and which ruled through brutality against the people. We thought it was in our national interest to be rid of that government, so we supported the opposition. But there were problems with the Contras. They consistently committed atrocities against the people of Nicaragua, such as killing people who weren't fighting or were unarmed, and severely mistreating civilians. Because of this controversy, between 1982 and 1984, the U.S. passed 3 laws under the name Boland Amendment, the third one cutting off all funding from the Contras. But nevertheless, on April 4, 1986, Colonel North designed a plan for $12 million in profits to go to support the Contras. Admiral Poindexter was supposed to give a memo of it to the President, but he didn't. Apparently the negotiations were working because Father Lawrence Jenko was released in July of 1986, and another hostage, David Jacobson, was released in November of the same year. However, also during the same year, 3 more people were taken captive. On November 25, 1986, CIA Deputy Director John N. McMahon said that they could no longer do any arms dealings without the President's permission, so Reagan signed an authorization document that was retroactive to the dealings that had already taken place. On the same day, Attorney General Edwin Meese announced that a lot of the money from Iran was sent to the Contras. Reagan then announced Admiral Poindexter's resignation and Colonel North's dismissal. On January 6th and 7th of 1987, Congress set up committees to investigate the whole affair. The hearings ended on November 18, 1987, after 28 witnesses gave 250 hours of testimony. The committees found that Reagan's top officials were to blame for most of the craziness that ensued over the former 2 years, and found that President Reagan didn't have enough to do with it to really punish him. Both Admiral Poindexter and Colonel North were convicted on several felonies, but the convictions were overturned in both cases. In all, there were 2012 TOW anti-tank missiles, 18 Hawk anti-aircraft missiles, and 240 spare parts for the Hawk missiles documented and sent to Iran, and $12 million was illegally sent to help a group of militants that couldn't do anything to stop the corrupt Nicaraguan government. We will never know exactly what happened because of all of the documents that were destroyed and all of the work the government did to cover it up, as with almost all government scandals. We can only speculate that something similar happened with the hikers in Iran during the past couple of years. Someone had to pay the $1.5 million to free them all on bail, and it's illegal for the U.S. government to do that. There is a rumor that the Omani government paid it, and that they are a middleman between Washington, D.C. and Iran, but that report cannot be confirmed. Maybe we will learn more about it in the future. It could take anywhere from a few weeks to a few years, or we might never know what happened there. Governments tend to repeat history, and it looks suspicious, but in the end, the hikers are back home and safe.